The great hall of the alien court was alive with whispers. Shining crystal pillars stretched high above, glowing with soft blue light. The ceiling looked like a sky of moving stars, and hundreds of alien nobles filled the chamber. Their eyes burned with curiosity, all fixed on one figure at the center of the hall. A human. He stood calm and quiet, wearing only a simple uniform. His dark hair was messy, his hands folded behind his back. He looked small compared to the tall alien guard around him, but his eyes carried something different, something strong. At the far end of the chamber, upon a raised throne of silver and firestones, sat the alien princess. Her beauty was sharp and dangerous, like a blade made of light. Silver hair fell over her shoulders, her skin pale and glowing, her long ears twitching slightly as she studied the man before her. The princess stood. Her voice echoed across the court, clear and filled with disbelief. "Lies," she declared. "No species can do that. Humans are weak, fragile, and short-lived. How can this one claim they survive the impossible?" The nobles gasped. Some laughed in mockery. Others stared at the human with curious eyes. The man did not move. He did not bow. He simply looked at her with steady calm, as if her words carried no weight. The princess narrowed her eyes. "You claim that your body endures what no other creature can. Fire, cold, hunger, pain, these things destroy all life. Yet you say you walk through them? I will not believe it." She stepped closer, her silver gown trailing behind her like water. "You will prove it here before all of us. If you fail, the lie of your kind will be revealed. If you succeed, then perhaps humans are more dangerous than I imagined." The hall filled with excitement. The alien nobles leaned forward in their seats, their glowing eyes eager to see the test. The guard stepped aside, leaving the human in the open. Still, he did not speak. He simply lifted his chin, ready for what would come. The princess raised her hand. A heavy iron door at the side of the chamber opened with a groan. Beyond it was a chamber filled with strange machinery and a thin mist that drifted like smoke. "The first test," the princess said. "This chamber is drained of air. No one can survive in it for long. Even our strongest warriors fall within minutes. Step inside, human. Show us your truth." The man's eyes flicked to the glowing room. He remembered the frozen nights of his home planet. He remembered training in mountains where the air was thin, where his lungs burned with every breath. Slowly, he stepped forward. The door closed behind him with a loud metallic thud. The aliens leaned closer, waiting for him to collapse. The mist thickened around his body, and the lights glowed brighter. The human stood still, his chest rising and falling, each breath steady and calm. Seconds passed, then minutes. The nobles began to murmur. "How is he still standing? No one can endure this. It must be a trick." The princess frowned, her fingers curling around the edge of her throne. She could not believe what she was seeing. The human skin glistened with sweat, but his body did not falter. He stood tall, as if the test meant nothing. At last, the door opened again. The human stepped out, breathing heavily but still alive, still strong. The chamber exploded with noise. Some shouted in disbelief. Others whispered in awe. The princess clenched her jaw. "This proves nothing," she said sharply. "Perhaps it was luck. Perhaps you cheated." The human's lips curved into a small smile, not of pride, but of quiet defiance. The princess turned to the guards. "Prepare the next test. We will see how long his luck lasts." The nobles roared with excitement. The game had begun, and as the human stood there, sweat on his brow and steel in his eyes, one truth became clear to everyone in that hall. This was no ordinary creature. This was a being who carried survival in his very blood. The alien princess did not sit back on her throne. Her silver eyes burned with frustration. The human had survived the chamber of thin air, something even her own elite soldiers could not do. The court buzzed with voices, but she raised her hand for silence. "This is not enough," she said sharply. "Air can be tricked, machines can be fooled, but the cold of Earthies cannot be cheated. If a human claims to endure the impossible, then let him face the frozen winds of our tundra. Let him survive the land that kills even our strongest within hours." The nobles gasped. Whispers spread like fire. The tundra of Earthes was a place of endless white storms, a frozen desert where metal cracked and living flesh turned to ice. To send anyone, there was not a test. It was a death sentence. The human did not flinch. He only adjusted his shoulders, his eyes calm, as though he had expected this. Guards moved quickly. A large gate at the side of the hall opened, revealing a glowing portal of blue light. The nobles leaned forward eagerly as the princess gave her command. Send him. The human stepped toward the portal without hesitation. The air around him shimmered as he passed through, and in the blink of an eye, he stood on the other side, out in the wild, frozen plains of Earthes. The court gasped at the vision projected into the air, a shimmering screen that showed his trial to all present. Snow whirled around the man in a furious storm. The wind howled like wolves. Ice bit into his skin with invisible teeth. He wore no heavy coat, no protective gear, only his simple uniform. The aliens hissed and shook their heads. He will not last a minute. His blood will freeze. This is where his lies end. The alien princess folded her arms, her lips pressed into a tight line. She was certain this would reveal the truth. But the human did not collapse. He lowered his head against the wind and began to walk. Each step was heavy, sinking into the snow, but his body pressed forward. His lungs burned as the icy air slashed through them. His hands numbed, and his skin turned red from the cold. But he remembered. He remembered Earth's mountains, where snow buried entire villages. He remembered soldiers training in frozen fields, crawling through ice, eating snow when water was gone. He remembered nights by the fire with frost biting his bones, but refusing to stop him. The cold was an enemy, yes, but one he had faced before. In the court, the nobles watched in silence as the human continued to move. Minutes stretched into hours. The storm thickened, covering him in a layer of frost, but still he walked. He stumbled once, fell to his knees, but he pushed himself up, staggering forward. The alien princess leaned forward on her throne, her knuckles white. "Impossible," she whispered. At last, after what felt like an eternity, the portal shimmered again. The human emerged back into the great hall, his lips blue, his breath ragged, but his body still upright. Ice clung to his uniform, his hair glittered with frost, but his eyes were still burning with life. The hall erupted. Some shouted in disbelief, others cheered in wild amazement. For the first time, respect began to flicker in the eyes of certain alien nobles. The human stood silently, his body trembling, but he refused to show weakness. He looked at the princess. For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and she felt something she had never felt before, doubt. She clenched her teeth. "This proves nothing," she snapped, her voice sharp and desperate. "Perhaps your body is strange. Perhaps you were lucky again. But luck runs out, human, and I will find the edge of your endurance." The human gave no reply. He simply stood there, cold air steaming from his body, his silence heavier than words. The princess raised her hand again. "Prepare the next test," she commanded. "If he claims to endure the impossible, then let him face fire itself." The nobles gasped again, the court alive with noise. The human only closed his eyes for a moment, steadying his breath. The cold had not broken him. Now fire would be his next trial. The court was restless. The nobles could not stop whispering after what they had witnessed. The human had walked through the frozen storms of Earthes and returned alive. No alien warrior had ever done such a thing. Some nobles now looked at him with awe, but others still hissed that it was a trick. The alien princess sat stiffly on her throne, her silver hair shimmering under the glowing lights. Her hands were tight on the armrests, her face calm, but her heart burned with anger. Twice now, the human had survived. Twice he had made her court doubt her words. She lifted her hand, her voice sharp as a blade. "Enough. If he survived the cold, then let him face the fire. No flesh can withstand the flames. No bone can walk through burning coals. If he fails here, his lies will end forever." The hall rumbled with excitement. Guards hurried to obey. A section of the floor split open, revealing a wide pit filled with glowing red stones. Heat poured from it like the breath of a dragon. Flames licked the edges, and smoke curled into the air. The nobles leaned forward. Many smiled cruelly. This will break him. Let us see if his skin can endure fire. Now he will beg for mercy. The princess pointed toward the pit. Walk through, she commanded. The human turned his head toward the pit of fire. Heat struck his face, but he did not flinch. He remembered deserts back on Earth, where the sun-scorched skin and sand burned the feet of soldiers who had lost their boots. He remembered the survival training, where they were forced to march across fields of glowing coals, to teach them discipline and pain control. He stepped forward. The first touch of coal burned through his thin boots, searing his flesh. The smell of smoke filled the air. The court leaned closer, expecting him to scream. But he did not. He clenched his jaw and kept walking. His body trembled, each step carving pain into his bones, but he refused to stop. Flames licked at his legs, burning cloth and blistering skin, yet he pressed forward. His heart pounded like a war drum. The nobles gasped. Some shouted in disbelief. This is madness. No one should walk through this. Why does he not fall? The alien princess stood from her throne, her eyes wide. For a moment, she forgot her anger and felt only shock. The human's body was breaking, but his spirit refused to yield. Every step was agony, but every step was also defiance. Halfway through the pit, his knees buckled. His skin burned, smoke rising from his clothes. For a heartbeat, the court believed he would fall, but then he forced himself upright again. His eyes blazed, filled with something deeper than strength. It was will. It was stubbornness. It was the refusal of humanity to ever bow. Step after step, he walked through the fire until at last he reached the other side. His body shook violently, burns clear on his legs, but he stood tall. He raised his head, meeting the princess's gaze. The hall exploded in noise. Some nobles shouted in awe, others in fear. Many looked at him now not as a fragile creature, but as something terrifying, something unbreakable. The alien princess's lips parted, but no words came at first. She could not deny what she had seen, yet pride held her tongue. At last, she forced her voice steady. This is not biology, she said coldly. This is madness. No sane creature would walk willingly through fire. He is not strong. He is reckless. But even as she spoke, her heart betrayed her. She had seen the truth. This was not madness. This was survival written into the very soul of his species. The human said nothing. He only stood, his body trembling, his breath heavy. He did not boast, did not raise his arms in victory. His silence was louder than any words. The princess turned sharply. Prepare the next test, she ordered. Her voice shook, though she tried to hide it. If he thinks his pain makes him powerful, then let him face death itself. The nobles roared again. The next trial would be the greatest of all, a battle against one of their monstrous beasts. And as the humans stood there, burned but unbroken, the court could feel the storm building. The true test of life and death was about to begin. The court fell silent as the princess's command echoed through the great hall. Her silver eyes gleamed, sharp as a blade. If he has survived air, cold, and fire, then let him face death itself. Bring forth the beast. A heavy rumble shook the floor. The nobles gasped as massive doors at the far end of the chamber slid open. From the darkness inside came a sound, low, guttural, filled with hunger. Then the creature stepped out. The beast was enormous, taller than 3 men. Its skin was thick and scaled, dark as stone. For glowing eyes stared from its monstrous face, burning like molten fire. Tusks curled from its jaw, and long claws scraped the ground as it walked. Chains rattled around its neck, but even the guards struggled to hold it. The nobles roared with excitement. Some laughed cruelly, others shouted bets. The human is finished. No creature survives the arena beast. This will end his foolish games. The princess watched carefully. Her heart pounded, though she did not show it. She wanted him broken, yet a shadow of doubt tugged at her mind. Twice he had done the impossible. Could he do it again? The guards released the chains. The beast bellowed, a sound that shook the very air, and charged. The human stood unarmed. No sword, no shield. Only his body, battered and burned, yet still standing. He took a deep breath, eyes locked on the monster. There was no fear, only focus. The beast's claws slashed toward him. At the last instant, he rolled aside, the strike smashing into the stone floor where he had stood. Shards of crystal flew into the air. The nobles gasped. The human rose quickly, his movements sharp despite his injuries. He circled the beast, studying it, searching for weakness. The creature turned, its tail whipping like a blade. It struck him across the chest, throwing him to the ground. Pain exploded through his body, but he forced himself up again. The nobles cheered wildly. He is finished. Look at him bleed. But the human did not stop. He remembered battles on Earth, facing enemies larger, stronger, with only wit and speed as weapons. He remembered soldiers taught that every beast has a weak spot. He just had to find it. The beast charged again, jaws open wide. The human waited, then at the last second, dove under its throat. His fist struck the softer skin beneath its jaw. The creature roared in pain, staggering back. The court gasped in shock. A human fist had made a monster cry out. The alien princess gripped the edge of her throne, her breath caught in her throat. The beast grew furious. Its claws slashed faster, its tail whipped harder. The human was struck again, blood spilling down his arm, but still he stood. Every time he fell, he rose again. Every roar of the beast was answered by his silence, his eyes burning with defiance. At last, the creature reared on its hind legs, ready to crush him. The human seized the moment. With all his strength, he leapt forward, climbing onto its back. The beast thrashed violently, but he clung on, his fingers digging into the ridges of its scales. Slowly, painfully, he climbed toward its head. The nobles screamed, some in excitement, others in horror. The human reached its glowing eyes. With a final cry of effort, he drove his hand into the soft flesh of its eye socket. The beast howled, staggering wildly. Blood and fire sprayed as it collapsed, its massive body crashing into the floor. The hall shook with the impact. Dust filled the air. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then the dust cleared, and the human stood. His body was torn, bleeding, his breath ragged, but he was alive. The beast lay dead at his feet. The court erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted in disbelief. Some fell to their knees, others stared in awe. For the first time, fear mixed with respect in their voices. The alien princess remained frozen. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to call it madness again, to deny what she had seen. But she could not. Her eyes locked with the humans, and for the first time, she felt something strange, respect and fear. The human said nothing. He only stood beside the fallen beast, his silence louder than victory. The princess rose slowly from her throne. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the hall. This is no lie. This is no trick. Humanity endures what should not be endured. But in her mind, another thought whispered, a thought she would not say aloud. If one human can do this, what could an army of them achieve? The corpse of the fallen beast still smoked on the floor of the alien court. The human stood beside it, his body trembling, blood dripping down his arm, burn still raw on his skin. Yet his eyes were steady, unbroken. The nobles were in chaos. Some shouted in fear, others whispered in awe. The once proud court, filled with laughter and scorn at the start of the trials, was now filled with unease. For the first time, they looked at the human not as prey, but as something terrifying, something unstoppable. The alien princess remained silent. Her silver eyes were fixed on the human. Her heart pounded as she tried to make sense of what she had seen. Air, cold, fire, and beast. Each test should have killed him. Yet he lived. And not only lived, he had conquered. But her pride refused to let her surrender. She rose from her throne, her voice echoing through the court. Enough of tricks and survival. If he claims that humans endure anything, then let him face the final truth. Let him face his breaking point. The nobles gasped. They knew what this meant. The breaking trial, a test designed not to measure strength or endurance, but to shatter the mind and spirit. No alien had ever walked out of it whole. The human lifted his head, his face pale but resolute. He said nothing, only met the princess's eyes with quiet defiance. The floor of the chamber shifted. A platform rose from the depths, carrying a strange machine made of crystal and shadowed metal. Its surface pulsed with a dark red light. The nobles fell silent, for they all knew its purpose. This machine, the princess declared, does not test the body. It tests the soul. It invades the mind, creates visions of pain, fear, and despair. Even the strongest warriors scream and beg within minutes. If the human endures this, then perhaps his kind truly are impossible. The human stepped toward the platform. His steps were slow but not hesitant. The guards strapped him into the machine, crystal bands locking around his wrists and chest. The red glow spread over his body, seeping into his skin like liquid fire. The court held its breath. At first, nothing happened. Then his head jerked back, his eyes wide, his breath ragged. His body trembled violently. Inside his mind, the machine showed him horrors. He saw Earth burning, his people screaming. He felt his flesh tear, his bones shatter. He heard voices whispering that he was weak, that he was alone, that nothing he did mattered. The pain was endless, not physical, but deeper, like fire in the soul. The nobles leaned forward eagerly. Now he will break. No creature survives this. The alien princess folded her arms, her expression sharp. Yet inside, her heart raced. The human gasped, sweat pouring down his face. His lips trembled, his body shook. The machine pressed harder, showing him endless cycles of death and despair. But then something changed. He remembered. He remembered comrades who had fallen beside him, their courage burning brighter than fear. He remembered nights on Earth, staring at the stars, dreaming of survival, of defiance. He remembered that humans had always been told what they could not do, yet they did it anyway. A sound escaped his throat. Not a scream, not a cry of pain. A laugh. Weak, broken, but a laugh. The court froze in shock. The machine surged with power, red light blazing. His body convulsed, but still he laughed, his eyes burning with fire. "You can't break me," he whispered. "We don't break. We endure." With a shattering crack, the machine's crystals split apart. Sparks flew, the red glow fading into darkness. The human sagged forward, half conscious, but alive. The nobles erupted into chaos. Some cried out that it was impossible. Others shouted that the machine had failed. But the truth was clear. The human had endured even this. The princess stared at him, her chest tight, her pride shaken. For the first time in her life, she could not deny the truth standing before her. This was the breaking point, and he had not broken. The great hall of the alien court was no longer filled with laughter. The echoes of chaos still hung in the air, but now silence pressed down like a heavy weight. The machine of despair lay in pieces, its glowing crystals shattered, sparks still flickering in the air. And strapped to its broken frame was the human, half-conscious, his chest heaving, sweat pouring down his burned and wounded body. He should have been broken. He should have been destroyed. But he was still alive. The nobles stared in disbelief. Some covered their mouths, others whispered prayers, as if they had just seen something divine. Many, for the first time in their lives, felt fear. The alien princess stood frozen. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her silver hair trembled around her shoulders as she gripped the edge of her throne. She had demanded this trial to expose weakness, to prove that humans lied. Yet everything she believed in was collapsing before her eyes. Her voice, when it finally came, was quiet, almost a whisper. "No, this cannot be real. Nothing survives the breaking trial. Nothing." The human lifted his head slowly. His lips were cracked, his body broken, but his eyes still carried the same fire. He looked directly at her, and in that gaze, she saw no arrogance, no mockery, only truth. He did not need to speak. His silence shouted louder than words. The nobles began to murmur again. Perhaps humans are stronger than we thought. He endured the machine. He endured everything. The princess felt her chest tighten. Her world, the order she had always known, was unraveling. All her life, she had been told that her people were superior, that no other species could rival them. Humans had been called fragile, reckless, weak. But here, before her, stood proof of something else. Proof of a strength that defied all reason. Her pride screamed at her to deny it. Her mind demanded she declare a trick. But her heart whispered the truth. Slowly, she stepped down from her throne. The hall fell silent as the nobles watched their princess descend, her silver gown flowing like water across the crystal floor. She walked until she stood before the human, still bound by the remains of the shattered machine. She stared at him for a long time. Then, in a voice softer than anyone had ever heard from her, she asked, "Why? Why do you endure this? Why do you refuse to fall when any other being would beg for death?" The human coughed, his breath ragged, but he managed to whisper, "Because we have no choice. On Earth, life is hard. Every day we fight. Cold, hunger, pain, they never stop. We learn to keep moving, even when we should fall. It is not power. It is survival." His words struck her like lightning. For the first time, she understood that this was not madness, not recklessness. It was the nature of his kind. The nobles shifted nervously. They had heard his words too, and many of them, for the first time, felt a strange respect. The princess closed her eyes, torn between pride and truth. She wanted to call him a liar again, to protect her people's belief in their superiority. But she could not. She had seen him survive every trial. She had seen him face death and return. Her beliefs, once unshakable, were crumbling like sand. When she opened her eyes again, they were different. No longer cold and sharp, but filled with something new, something she had never allowed herself to feel toward another species. Respect. She raised her hand, and the guard stepped back, releasing the human from the broken machine. His body sagged, but he refused to collapse. Even now he stood. The princess turned to her court. Her voice was steady, but her words shook the very foundation of their world. Today, we have seen the truth. Humanity is not fragile. Humanity is not weak. They are unbreakable. The hall erupted with voices, some furious, some amazed, some terrified. But none could deny the truth anymore. The alien princess had seen it. Her people had seen it. And the universe itself would soon know. The human spirit could not be broken. The alien court was no longer the same place it had been at the start of the trial. The crystal pillars still glowed. The nobles still filled the seats, but the air had changed. Where once there had been laughter and scorn, now there was only silence and awe. The human stood in the center of the hall, his body broken, but his spirit unshaken. His burns stung, his wounds bled, but his eyes were steady. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He stood as if the weight of the galaxy pressed against him, and yet he refused to fall. The alien princess stood before him, her silver gown shimmering in the pale light. Her heart, once filled with pride and defiance, was now heavy with something new. She had mocked him, tested him, tried to break him, but instead, she herself had been broken, not by pain, but by truth. She turned to her nobles. Her voice carried across the chamber. You all saw it. Air, cold, fire, beast, even the machine of despair. He endured them all. We mocked humanity as fragile, yet no one here can deny what we have witnessed today. The nobles stirred. Some shouted in protest. This cannot be allowed. He is dangerous. If humans are like him, then they are a threat. Others, however, spoke with trembling voices. No, they are not a threat. They are survivors. Perhaps this is why they rise when others fall. The princess raised her hand, silencing them. Her eyes never left the human. This one man has done more than survive. He has shown us that humanity is not weak. There's something we have never faced before. They are unbreakable. A murmur ran through the hall. The words of the princess carried more power than the trials themselves. To admit respect for another species was unheard of, but no one could deny what they had seen. The human shifted slightly, his breath ragged, but he did not speak. His silence was stronger than any speech. He did not beg for recognition. He did not demand victory. He simply stood, and that alone was enough. The princess stepped closer. For the first time, she lowered her head, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. "You have my respect, human," she said quietly, though all in the court heard her words. "You have shown me the truth, and I will never forget it." The nobles gasped. To hear their princess speak such words was beyond belief. Yet they saw the fire in her eyes, the sincerity in her voice. She was not humiliated. She was changed. The human gave a faint nod, his lips curving into the smallest of smiles. It was not triumph. It was not pride. It was simply the quiet strength of someone who had endured and survived. The princess turned back to her throne, her gown flowing behind her. As she ascended the steps, she looked out over her people. "Let the galaxy hear this truth," she declared. "Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not fragile. They are a force beyond fear, beyond reason. If one human can do this, then imagine what their kind can achieve together." Remember this day, for it marks the beginning of a new chapter. The court erupted, not with laughter or scorn, but with voices filled with awe, confusion, and fear. Some nobles shouted their agreement. Others shook their heads in denial. But all of them knew the truth. The human had not only survived, he had changed the way an entire species saw his kind. As the great hall echoed with voices, the human stood tall in the center, his body broken, but his spirit unbroken. And in that moment, one truth became clear to all who watched. For what others called impossible, humanity called survival.